Hello everyone, I'm Richard Fredrickson, and this is a special report from JCTV Channel 6, and we welcome each and every one of you. This is an annual event that we're privileged to cover for you, and it is an event that's going to take place in a little different location this year. We've traveled all the way out to beautiful Sugar Grove, Illinois, to the Aurora Municipal Airport, and as you've seen, it is quite the airport. It is fabulous. In fact, we hope to come on back here in the not too distant future to bring you some of the activity that goes on in the museums that are adjacent to this airport having to do with warbirds in World War II. Today is a great event. It's a great weekend, and it's an event and weekend that takes place every year around this time. So you can, well, I'm going to introduce you to the head man, the XO here, Executive Officer of the Warbirds of America, Squadron 4, and Dave Stevens, thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Busy guy today, organizing all of this. Tell us just briefly, if you can, who are the Warbirds of America and what do you do?
Well, we're kind of super fans of World War II aircraft. It's, we call them warbirds. Anything that flew in World War II or even after, we want to know about it. We want to preserve it. We especially want to honor the guys that flew those planes, the veterans.
And so today at Aurora Municipal Airport is one of those events, one of those days.
Yes, the EAA has brought aluminum overcast, the B-17, and we've got 4 or 5 B-17 veterans, guys that actually flew those planes in combat. And they're here, they're going to take a flight and just kind of renew the old ties with the plane, I guess.
Yeah, and you've got a nice ceremony as the fellas will board the plane. We've got American Legion post out here, a color guard, and a sort of an escort onto the plane, and there'll be some media on that plane as well. Now, but you have a whole weekend of activities and opportunities for folks to be introduced to the B-17.
Oh yeah, we want everyone to come out, take a look at the plane. You can go out and walk around it and look at it for free. There's no charge. There'll be other warbirds out there you can get up close to. It's a good day out. I mean, you're not going to see this kind of stuff anywhere else. And there are flights, there's opportunities to fly on the plane. You can pay $10 and go through it, crawl in the back, crawl in the front, and go up and, you know, see the cockpit. Gives you a chance to understand what it was like inside that plane. And families can go through for $20. Veterans are free, kids under 8 are free. It's just a great experience for anybody that wants to come out and get close.
Is there a website they can go to for, because many of you have missed this opportunity, but there are other opportunities, and of course there's always next year as well, as the Cubs would tell you. There's always next year. But do you have a website?
The EAA's website about the bomber, if you wanted to know where it's going to be next, is b17.org. Warbird Squadron 4's website is warbirdsquadron4.org. On there you can find our activities, what we're going to be doing next. Sometimes we have meetings out at airports. Occasionally we'll go see somebody's restoration project. There's a B-17 being built by one of our members out in Marengo, Illinois, and we go out and visit him, do a little work for him. But the whole thing is kind of to get together and have fun. But he's got a B-17 in a barn, and it's a lot of fun to go up there and help him out. Someday I hope we get it flying.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. We are going to be visiting with some of those World War II veterans here, and we'll talk to them before flight time, and we'll get those websites up for those of you who want to check on more information. And you did a great job. Thank you so much, sir. And
Thank you for coming out.
we're gonna go visit these veterans right now. We're talking with Bill Thorne. What, you're from Frankfurt?
Frankfurt, yes.
Yeah. Frankfurt, Illinois.
Illinois,
Yeah,
Roger.
not Frankfurt, Germany.
Right. Although Frankfurt, Germany was my last 2 missions.
Yeah, that's why I thought, you know, I remember that from last time. You mentioned that. And so is there a tie-in between that and you ending up in Frankfurt?
No, not really. No, I was originally born back in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I transferred out with my company in 1955 to Illinois.
What company was that?
I was with Copper's company at that time. So
Yeah.
it was a big company in Pittsburgh. They had atomic division, they had a tar products division, a chemical division, and wood preserving division, and many divisions throughout the
Now,
country.
one thing that we're going to keep a secret, only you and I will know this, but Bill Thorne from Frankfurt, Illinois, is a Pittsburgh Steeler fan.
Roger. All the way.
Okay, well, how old were you when you joined up with the United States Army Air Corps?
I was 2 months over 18. Yeah, I left home the 23rd of December 1941 and went to Indiantown Gap for my shots and so forth, and then I went to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri for boot training. And then I'd never been more than 72 miles from Pittsburgh, and my first air base was out at Glendale, California. What a deal. 7 miles from Hollywood. LA was there, Long Beach was there, Malibu was there, Lake Arrowhead, Big Bear Lake, all those amenities. And I had never been more than 72 miles from Pittsburgh. So that was an eye-opener for me.
You know, I usually ask this question later on in the interview, but I'm going to ask it now because if you're in training there in California, did you get a chance to get any R&R in there in any of those places?
Not really. We had a pretty rigid schedule. And of course, it was at the very beginning of the war. So the whole military, all of the military were feeling their way along. Yeah. In fact, you see the gunner's wings with the winged bullets now. When I finished up my training, there weren't, those wings hadn't even been designed yet. So I ended up with air crew wings for being on air crew of B-17. But there were no winged bullet wings at that time. They hadn't been designed yet.
Haven't been designed yet. Now, what position on the plane are you now?
I was an engineer. I went to AM school at Glendale, California, Curtis Wright Technical Institute, and that afforded me to be available for being an engineer. And you had to have the basic training of aircraft mechanics to be able to be one.
Yeah. So, what does an engineer in the Army Air Corps do?
Well, an engineer at that time was responsible for, well, he stood most of the time between the two pilots, and he would issue out different readings on the instruments, airspeeds. One of the main provisions was he was responsible for transferring fuel, which was somewhat complicated. If you had an engine over exceeding its amount of fuel, you'd have to transfer from other places to duplicate the fuel that had been unnecessarily used, depending on how rich the engine was running or how lean. So,
you know, it just dawned on me. I should have asked this earlier in the interview. You joined what date in December of 1941?
I was inducted the 23rd of December, which was only a couple of weeks after Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, and so
I had to get my parents' permission.
Yeah.
They hadn't lowered the draft yet. I had to get both parents' permission in order to go in. And so I could have probably stayed home another couple of years before I had to go in, but I was anxious to get in, as many were. Many, I mean, there were 16 million people in that war.
Yeah. 16 million people, but Bill Thorne, after hearing about Pearl Harbor and after hearing President Roosevelt, that had to be huge motivation for you. You had to be motivated by something to get and join the Army at that young age.
Yes, it was. In fact, I really remember I was walking home from church Sunday morning, and all I know is I saw all of my neighbors coming out on their porches, say, "Hey, Billy, the Japanese have bombed Pearl Harbor." And I didn't exactly know what that meant exactly, so I ran like mad till we got home, and then it set in. And it wasn't too long after that. It took me a long time to get my parents' permission, but my dad and mother both had siblings killed in World War I. So I can see their reluctance to not wanting to sign for me.
Well, sure. Yeah, when their children go in the dangers of war,
Exactly.
and then having the experience of losing people in what was supposedly the last big war, that was it. That was supposed to be it.
Yeah.
The theater you were in, the European theater?
I was in the theater. We flew out of England. We were stationed at a place called Snetterton Heath, about 18 miles southwest of Norwich, England. And that was our air base. And I made my 25 missions, fortunately.
Before they changed it to 35, correct?
Yes. Well, it went from 25 to 30, and then from 30 to 35. It went up in those increments, primarily because the frequency of being shut down, casualties, more airplanes, more bombers, more fighters. As those increased in numbers, the number of missions you had to complete increased. And I mean, it wasn't unusual near the end of the war for 2,000 planes to be on a mission. But when I went on mission, the maximum I had on any one mission, I think there was 300 of us.
Amazing, just
yeah.
amazing. The I asked you earlier about R&R. You didn't get a chance to do much of that in training. Did you get a chance to do any sightseeing in some of the places that you were stationed in England?
Not a whole lot, but I did take advantage of our flight surgeons had us go to what they called a flak home. They figured around the 12th mission you might get a little squirrely. So they took you off of flight status and send you to a flak home, where you could leisurely for 7 days do whatever you want to. No holds barred. Yeah. So that was the only R&R I had over there. I didn't go see many places, because in a wartime effort like that, you do more socializing, and that's what I did more of than I did sightseeing. And
with your buddies, socializing out with your buddies?
Oh yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Going to church a lot?
No, unfortunately, but we have a stained glass window in a church right near our air base over in England. It's a memorial chapel. Yeah.
And now you got out of the Army Air Corps before the war ended?
No. I stayed in. I ended up as an instructor of engineers in Boise, Idaho, after I came back. And so I got out in September of 1945. But the war was over at that time, both the Japanese, the VJ, and the European.
What rank did you leave the Army Air Corps?
Oh, I was just a staff sergeant.
There's no such thing as just a staff sergeant, which is interesting because today's Air Force, or the Air Force that developed, as an engineer, you'd probably be an officer today.
Well, probably yes, because some of the planes only had three or four guys running these monstrous airplanes, like the B-52.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a firing officer on there that took care of most of the guns and everything. Even that was on the B-29.
Yeah. What's interesting is that the old guys on those planes, excuse me, these old guys were like what, 21, 22 years old?
Yes. In fact, our co-pilot was 27, and we called him Pappy.
Yeah, sure.
Because most of the, in general, the non-coms on the planes, there were 6 of us originally, became only 5 later on. The non-coms were in general younger than the officers by anywhere from 2 to 4 years. So most of my officers, my pilot was 23, my bombardier was 24, our co-pilot was 27, our navigator was 23.
amazing you can remember all that. I can't remember where the men's room here
Well,
at the airport
things-
is.
Some things stick in your mind as you get older,
Yeah.
and others are washed out.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about
The
it.
important stuff is there, and we want to thank you for your service. Thank you for coming here today. Have a great flight,
It's my pleasure.
and we enjoyed your conversation. Thank you very much. Take care.
Take care.
We're going to continue our conversations with the men of the greatest generation, and today we, at this hour, I think it's just before flight time, we have William Joyner. And William, first of all, sir, thank you for your service, and thank you for stopping by. How was lunch?
Very good.
Good, good. Hey, where are you from?
Princeton, Illinois.
Princeton, Illinois.
Yep.
What's Princeton, Illinois famous for?
Not too many things.
They're famous for Bill Joyner.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
okay.
Absolutely. What do you do down in Princeton? What did you do down in
I
Princeton?
was in construction work
Good.
Yep.
Good.
for 50 years.
50 years.
50 years with the same company.
Oh my God. What company?
Strunk Brothers. Strunk Brothers.
Good. We'll charge them, by the way. We're going to charge that company for their advertising.
That sounds good to me. If you
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah, if I can get it, right? Well, let me ask you this. At what age were you when you were recruited or joined the Army Air Corps?
18.
18 years old.
Took out of high school.
Right? When was this? What year?
1943.
1943. So you're one of the younger guys here.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
One guy over there talking, he's 102.
Yeah.
I'm only 89.
And you're a young guy. You're the youngest guy I'm talking to today. Well, when you joined the Army Air Corps, did you join with you wanted to be a pilot, co-pilot, a navigator, bombardier? What did you want to do?
I wanted to be a pilot,
Okay.
but I did not pass the test, so I ended up being a flight engineer.
A flight what?
Flight engineer.
Flight engineer. So I've got two flight engineers I've talked to today. So what does a flight engineer do?
Well, maintains the airplane while you're flying. It's not too much you do with that when you're flying, but it's a lot of things you do. I did a lot of things in there.
Yeah.
You stand there and call off the airspeed in and out for the pilot, co-pilot, and you bring all the equipment in the plane, like the first aid kits and all that stuff. That's part of the job right there. There's a lot of little things
Yeah,
to do.
yeah. And the things that need so the guys can take off,
Yeah,
do their mission, and come on back.
right. Yeah.
How many missions did you fly?
14.
14 missions, and out of where? Where were you based?
I'm based in Pottstown, England.
In England.
Pottstown.
Yeah. They must have had so many airfields over there.
All airfields, everywhere you looked.
Yeah.
There are airfields
It's
everywhere.
amazing.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, and I don't picture England having that much countryside, but they must have had just miles and miles and miles and acres of
Yeah.
airfields. The job of the flight engineer, we know that. How many, and you flew 14 missions?
Yes.
And where were those? European theater, correct?
Yes. Right.
Where were you bombing these? Where were these
All over
runs?
Germany.
All over?
Yeah, yeah. Fuel depots, bearing factories, and that type of thing. Just several.
Yeah.
Other things too, but just several. Mainly that.
Did you fly in the same aircraft, or there's different aircraft?
No, different. Whatever's fit.
Same thing about the crews? The same crew or
Well,
different
sometimes-
guys?
Some planes weren't. They'd been shot up, and
Yeah.
you didn't fly the same plane all the time.
Yeah. And how about the crews? You fly with the same crews?
I did, yes. Unless somebody was sick, I had to fill in for them. Most of the time it was same crew.
And so how many on a crew? How many on the B-17?
There's 10.
10 guys. Wow. You know, I can always tell the guys who were the, I don't know, belly gunners or whatever, they're the real short fellas.
Yeah, always, because that's the only one that could get down in
They
there.
can get in there.
That's right.
It's amazing. Did you take on fire at any time during your missions?
Did you do what?
You take any fire from in any of your missions?
No, because by the time I was flying, the Germans couldn't get the airplanes off the ground. They didn't have any fuel. So it's mostly anti-aircraft stuff.
Yeah. Mostly. That's bad enough.
Bad.
Yeah.
You look at the target as you're coming up to target area, and it's anti-aircraft. There's blue puffs, black puffs all over it. You're
All
driving,
kinds of flak.
flying right into that flak. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you end up, did they, any kind of an R&R while you were in England? Rest and relaxation at maybe a flat place or?
We had a lot of places we went to. We went down the French Riviera, Paris, Rome, a lot of places.
Wow. Have you ever returned to any of those places after?
No.
No, huh? But you've seen the, you've seen a
I've been
lot.
back over in England, but I've never went to any of those, no.
Yeah, back into England.
Yeah, I've been back over there, yes.
Now, let me ask you this. Did you, when you got out, since you got in 43, you probably got out, what, 46, 45?
45.
Did you do anything, did they call you back up for Korea?
No.
You know, no one, I think 2 years ago we talked to guys who were in World War II, and about at least two of them actually were called back for Korea.
When the war was over, we thought we were going to be sent back to the States and trained in a B-29. But they changed that, and we went to France. It's just France. And we flew to high-power infantry to Casablanca, so they could get a bigger plane back home. Yeah. We did that for about 6 months, and then we come back home.
That was nice, and that's kind of like a milk run.
Yeah, but definitely. Yeah. That was easy. It was a lot easier than flying missions, I'll tell you. It's a lot easier than that. That was an easy job.
Well, you're going to have a great flight. Is this your first flight back?
I had one about 5 years ago in DeKalb.
In DeKalb, yeah. Well, this is our first time at the Aurora Airport. This is quite some place, isn't it? I've never been here before. Have you been here to Aurora Airport?
I've not been here, but I've been to here and DeKalb and DuPage County.
Yeah.
But I didn't fly at DuPage. It's all filled up.
Yeah. Well, we're going to fly, hopefully today, get on that flight. Okay. And we thank you for your service. Thank you for stopping by. Take care. And if this is why the tourists go to Princeton. We're going to continue with our interviews, and again, I say what a pleasure and what a privilege it is to talk to these guys from the greatest generation ever. And I have Mr. Kenneth Hoffman with me. Ken, welcome. First of all, welcome. And I'm hearing, Ken, this is your first time for the Warbirds of America for their flight. The Chapter 4, and this is your first time. Is this your first time at Aurora Airport?
Yeah, first time.
Yeah, it's really quite a place, isn't it?
It's a large place, my God.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was this big either. I was here years ago, and it wasn't like this. Actually, I think this place is located in Hinckley. You know, I think, and then Aurora, one of those days, just kind of snuck in and took the land. Aurora Airport is fabulous, fabulous. Well, let me let the folks know a little bit about yourself. Ken, tell me about your family.
Well, I was born in Wilmette, Illinois, and father, mother, and I had, when I married, I got three children, a boy and two girls. Mm-hmm. And my daughter's the one that drove me out here.
And your kids' names?
Diane, Nancy, and David.
Great, wonderful. And you're obviously married. Your wife's name? What?
Muriel.
Muriel. Okay. Well, now we're just going to have a good time. It's just the two of us talking here, and we're going to forget about all these bright lights and everything going on here. When were you drafted or recruited back in the 40s? Well,
I graduated high school in 41. What they call it, 6 months later, we were at war, and I enlisted in the Air Force at that time.
The Army Air Corps, right?
Army Air Corps.
Yeah. Yeah, because the Air Force got back several years later. They made up these new uniforms and put a place out in Colorado and made it the Air Force.
You could always tell if it was an Army Air Force or the new Air Force. The old Army Air Force, brown shoes. New Air Force, black shoes.
Black shoes.
So if you see a guy then, he's got brown shoes, he's an Army.
Did you know that? I bet you didn't. We're going to continue here. How old are you when you're in the
91.
No, not now. You look like you're about 55 years old. When were you? How old were you when you joined?
19.
19 years old. 91 years old now. I'm going to ask you later what kind of vitamins you take because whatever you're taking, I want to take them. Because before we did the shoot, he was doing a couple of slapstick things here. So man has a lot of humor going on as well. Not so humorous is what took place in World War II, and I don't want to touch on all of those kinds of things, but what theater did you were you involved in?
We flew out of Italy, what do you call it, 15th Air Force, 43rd Bomb Group. And
Wow. Now, in Italy,
yep.
so before you get to Italy, your training took place where?
Well, what do you call it? I went to Tyndall Field, Florida for a gunnery. And then from there, what do you call it? We went up to Ardmore, Oklahoma for OTU. And then from Ardmore, Oklahoma, we went up to Kansas City, no, Kansas. We picked up the new B-17, what do you call it? Flew it up to Gander. From Gander, what do you call it? We went to the Azores. From the Azores, we landed over at Marrakesh. Marrakesh, we went to Tunis. We flew across the Mediterranean. We landed a little port in Italy, and the guy came out and says, "You've been assigned to the 43rd Bomb Group 1816 Squadron. They lost a whole squadron yesterday on a flight." We said, "Holy Christ."
Yeah, what a welcome that is.
What are we getting into? But anyhow, then we went up to the 43rd.
Yeah. Wow. It's an interesting how you got there, by the way. It sounds like something that we would be doing today, trying to get a cheap ticket to Florida and going to Dallas first, and then finding our way to Florida.
Actually, if we hadn't stopped 2 or 3 times on the road over, we might have been on that first flight that never made it out.
Yeah, it's all about minutes and seconds, isn't it? Yeah, being here or there. On the B-17, what position were you in?
Well, I started out as the armor gunner. I flew left waist until I got hit. And then from then on, I went back in the tail. I felt safer back there.
Safer in the tail?
Yeah.
Okay, if you say so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I got 2 great big ammunition boxes alongside of me. I got 2 50s in front of me. I'm sitting on a little bicycle seat with a little flak suit. I carried an extra parachute, carried an extra 45, and a big helmet,
It's amazing. I've been doing these interviews, I don't know, about 3 or 4 years now, and I've been on these flights, and it's just impossible to believe that these kids, 19, 18, 20-year-olds, did what you did for your country, for your flag, and for your people. What a patriot you are. And you just have to, well, you'll get a chance, I believe, will be on board on the flight to get a closer look at the B-17. Great aircraft of its time, but very little protection.
Well, it's a great Air Force, what do you call it? A lot of times we limped back. A lot of times we almost didn't get back. Yeah. But it brought us back.
Yeah, it brought you back. Did you have a name on that? Did you guys put a name on that plane?
No, what do you call it? Since the squadron didn't have any planes hardly left, what do you call it? We landed, and from then on, you weren't assigned to a special plane. You were assigned, what do you call it, to whatever plane happened to be available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whatever crew was there, and you just joined that. Did you have your buddies in the same crew? Or did you change different crews?
Well, what happened was, I was hit on my 5th mission, the second one to Pulesti, and I was in the hospital for a month. And when I come back, my crew was gone, and nobody knew what happened to them. I said, "Hey, where's the guys?" "I don't know." "What they doing?" "I don't know." Well, it turned out, I found out later on, that there was a call for a 9-man crew, what do you call it, for a secret squadron. They were flying out of Africa, dumping spies and supplies to the partisans and different in France and that, and over in Italy, and what do you call it, and they finished their missions there. So from then on, what do you call it, I simply filled in for a lot of guys that didn't make it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to end this interview on a little more higher and nicer note. What do you have a memory of some place you took off for a little bit of R&R?
Yeah, what do you could go? A couple of times we went up to Rome. That was fun. And then went over to the Isle of Capri. That was fun. And then we went back to where it wasn't so fun.
Yeah. But, for the sake of your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, we will not mention what you mean by having fun in Rome and Capri. And
We went to church.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your service, and it's great meeting you and talking with you.
Thank you.
We're going to continue. Okay, we're back again, and this is a familiar face to me, and you may not know this gentleman, but this is Charlie Mueller. And Charlie, first of all, thank you again for stopping by, and this is a brand new location for you, the Aurora Airport. What do you think about this airport?
Beautiful.
Isn't it?
It's really beautiful.
Yeah, it is fantastic.
Well organized. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll need to take a kind of a tour of the airport before we finish with these interviews. I'm going to do what we did last year for you, just because my memory's not that good.
Welcome to the club.
When you joined, right? You joined the Army Air Corps.
Yeah, I joined the Army Air Corps really because I wanted to be a weather forecaster.
So you were the foreshadowing of Tom Skilling.
Yeah.
Right.
As a matter of fact, when I was in high school, that's what got me started. I did make my own forecasts for a year, and I kept a record, and I beat the Weather Bureau. So when the war started, that's what I wanted to be.
Perfect. And so, as the Army, Marines, Navy, and Army Air Corps, when you go in for a particular position, you always get that position, right?
No.
Of course not. Where are you from?
Originally Chicago.
Yeah. North side, south side?
South side.
South side where?
59th and Loomis.
Okay, very good.
Ogden area.
Yeah, sure. And that was, what ethnic background was in that area?
I was in one that would be, you would classify it as German, probably.
Yeah, a lot of Germans in Chicago back in the 40s, actually all over the country.
Right.
So you're in the Army Air Corps. You want to be a weatherman, meteorologist, and you end up being what?
A navigator.
All right.
And the reason being is the Army Air Corps didn't have a weather forecaster, but they told me that the navigator is the one who records everything about the weather. I said, well, that's the best I can
Right.
get, so
And it's true.
I'll be a navigator.
Yeah. And that is true. Correct. Now, where's a navigator? As we show the folks the B-17, where's the navigator at in the plane?
It's in the nose of the plane. You know, the bombardier is right in the front. The navigator is to his left and behind him. And there's a little table for your maps and things there.
Yeah. So you're close, not too far from the radio operator, are you?
Well,
No, he's way down.
He's behind the section where you carry the bombs.
Yeah.
He's behind that.
I remember that.
Yeah, I'm in the front of that.
And you'll see that. You'll see that. What theater were you in?
In the ETO, which is European Theater of Operations, out of England.
And when you were there, the amount of missions that you had during that time?
Well, I did a total of 8. 6 of them are only worthwhile because 2 of them are what we call milk runs.
And what's a milk run? What's a milk run?
Well, it's where you don't have to worry too much about fighter planes or anti-aircraft. It was right along the coast of France. They did have a couple places where they had the V1s. Those were putt-putt things. Yeah.
More than putt-putt things.
Yeah.
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 Now, I know pilots have a certain amount of missions that they fly and then they're taken off and either rotated out or back home. Did that apply to navigators as well?
It would have, but I got shot down before it would have been put into practice.
Well, you're obviously here, so were you rescued or did you do some time as a prisoner?
No, a prisoner.
Where were you a prisoner at?
Well, we got shot down near Hanover, Germany. This was before the invasion, and the idea was to get the Germans to put their airplanes back in the sky. They were keeping their planes, good ones, on the ground in preparation for the invasion. They knew they had to have superior aviation.
Yeah.
And so our guys came up with the idea, well, we'll go to Berlin and bomb Berlin. They'll send up everything they got. We lose planes, they lose planes, but we replace ours. And with our bombing their airfields and factories, they won't be able to replace them, and that would give the Americans superiority at the time of the invasion.
Well, aside from the fact that you getting shot down, I mean, taking the prisoner, the strategy worked.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It did. So when the invasion came, the 8th Air Force had, you might say, complete control, and that protected. I mean, that doesn't mean that every German plane is missing, but they didn't have the Luftwaffe that they wanted.
So, if I can ask you, I mean, if you don't have to answer this, but what was it like, and where were you held prisoner?
Well, I got shot down at Hanover, taken eventually. I couldn't walk. The bombardier was killed. We crash landed, and I ended up in a German hospital, German Luftwaffe hospital. Uh, they knew I couldn't escape because I couldn't walk, and I stayed there for about 3 days, and then was sent to a prisoner of war camp where they had prisoners who couldn't escape because they couldn't walk, or they didn't have to worry about you doing it.
Yeah.
They had a building where there was maybe a junior college they converted to a hospital 5 years earlier when the British were captured at Dunkirk.
Sure. World War I, right?
No,
No?
World War II.
Dunkirk?
Yeah, the English were retreating from Poland, and the
Oh,
Germans
yeah,
were
yeah.
chasing them. And
So they actually took a junior college or a high school or something and converted that to a hospital for the Brits.
yes, and now the Americans were coming in greater numbers. And it was for people who couldn't walk generally, so they didn't have to worry about escaping, because you can't escape from.
You know, I normally ask if you made buddies or friends with crews that you're flying with, and obviously you did. But how about the guys who were fellow prisoners? Was there relationships that you've had with those?
Oh yeah, what we did I ended up in Stalag Luft 3, the one that was made famous by the movie The Great Escape.
Ah,
The one section, it was maybe 2 or 3 blocks long and 2 or 3 blocks wide, the camp, but it was broken up into different sections, and the Great Escape was by the English in, say, the northeast corner. I was in the first one for the Americans, and it was called the North Compound. And there were trees and barbed wire between us, and we weren't allowed to whistle over to them or anything. Although on Christmas, I was there at Christmas of 44, I guess. Yeah. Our highest ranking officer talked to the German commandant about being able to sing songs that the British would know, that we could talk to one another
Right.
by singing. And he said, as long as you swore that nobody would try to escape, we'll give you permission. And so the British started singing Christmas carols, and we sang along with them at that time.
and so when the Brits are singing these Christmas carols, they got their fingers crossed because they did escape.
Yeah, well, they had been digging a tunnel to get out. They hadn't. Yeah, they had made their attempt, but they knew they wouldn't be making any more attempts.
Wow, what a great story. I asked a few of the other fellows too about once you get out of, you were liberated at the end of the war.
Yeah, well, what they did is they moved all of the prisoners. We were right on, Stalag Luft 3 was right on the border between Germany and, I don't know, it might have been Poland. I don't remember. Because they thought if you escaped, you'd have to go, if you went east, you'd have to go through the German army and then the Russian army. So that wasn't too good. If you escaped to the west, you had to go a couple hundred miles to get anywhere. And it's Germany, and if you don't know how to speak German, you're going to have a little trouble. So they felt it was safe. But as the Russians approached and the Germans were retreating, they didn't want us captured by the Russians. And the reason being, the Russians would give us a gun and we'd be in the Russian army. That was the whole idea. So the Germans moved us out, and we kept moving farther and farther south. Almost got down to I can't even remember what it is down there, but the southern part of Germany.
It's interesting. I never heard that point of view before in terms of moving prisoners so that the Russians wouldn't give you an M1 or whatever and you back into fighting for the Russian army.
Yeah, that's correct. That's why they moved us. And we ended up down there, and we were liberated there by General Patton. And that was an interesting thing if you want to hear it.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, the prisoners had been had been coming in from all over, into moving us away from the battles. Okay, we're down there. There were 60,000 prisoners. It was humongous, and there was a man who was a priest. And at that time of the war, as we marched down, the Germans allowed you to talk to the natives because you weren't going to go anywhere.
Right.
And so guys tried to swap things and so on. So we get down there. This priest had got things so he could say Mass, and it was a Sunday. And we could hear the fighting of General Patton and the Germans north of us. But it kept getting closer and closer. And pretty soon, the Germans retreated. Now we had Germans on one side of the camp and Patton on the other side, and they were shooting at one another. And the priest said, "Forget this.
Take cover.
Take cover." Well, there was a town real close. We don't know what it was, but the trees and so on. But there was like a steeple of a building, either a church or a government building, and a big swastika was hanging there. So when the Germans retreated, the Americans got closer and closer. The guards left. We didn't have guards there anymore. And we could see the firing that was going on, and we could see the flag being hit. But one of the guys I knew had the same idea he had. We were right up in a position that we were right outside the barracks that was used by the Germans as an office. And I figured my records are in there, everybody's gone. So he and I both went in to get them. We're going through the file cabinet. And other people got the same idea. Pretty soon the room was filled with guys wanting to get their records. And just like that, it got dead quiet, not a sound. I was afraid to move. I didn't know it. But I can't see out of this. I got shot there. But I could sense that somebody was right next to me. And I started to turn. It was General Patton.
Oh, my
just as close as you and I are. The nice ivory
Pistols?
pistols. Yeah. And so he said he was there to get all the records. And I thought, oh, no. This is going
mine.
home with
This is
me.
going home.
Yeah. And
What rank were you?
I was a second lieutenant at the time.
Great. Talking to the general. No, you're not going to take these with you.
Yeah, no. So anyway, I have those records at home. The German records shows the different prison camps I was in, the different hospitals.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, a remarkable story. Great talking with you again. And you have a great flight. It'll be coming in here in a couple of minutes on the B-17, and maybe we'll see you during the flight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Take care. We're going to continue talking. I think this is, I don't know, second or third time I've had the conversation with you.
Second time.
But never here at the Aurora Airport.
Lewis College.
Yeah. And I got a couple different questions to ask you, but we're going to do a couple that we normally do. And just, this is a gentleman that I've talked to before, Ted Meacham. And where are you from? What town are you from?
Joliet.
From Joliet. Originally from Joliet?
No, originally from Chicago Heights. I was born there.
South Side has, over the years, all moved into Joliet.
Yeah. 1937.
Wow, 1937. That is way back.
No, I went to the high school here in Joliet.
Which was the only high school, right? Central?
Central.
Yeah. Well, great, good. Now, were you recruited or were you drafted?
I enlisted four of us guys got enlisted in the service together.
And all four in the same service?
They all got in the Air Force, but different branches.
Yeah. And again, Army Air Corps, right?
Yeah.
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 Now, why? Why the Army Air Corps? Why not, the Navy? Why not the Marines? Why not just regular Army?
Because the Air Corps is more interesting, more enthusiastic about getting into it and see the world.
Yeah. Well, did you see the world?
Yeah, I did, pretty much so.
Yeah. Well, after training, which took place where?
After when?
After the training period, which took place, where was the training taking place?
Different areas. And we were in Washington, Walla Walla, Washington, on our training flights. But prior to that, I had to go to radio school, and that was in Madison, Wisconsin. Then we got together and became a group in Walla Walla, Washington. Then we flew from there to Oregon, then from there to Boise. Then we ended up going to Scottsfield, where we picked up our B-17. We went to Bangor, Maine. From there, we flew over to Scotland.
In Scotland. Now, before we get to the theater you're in the European theater, I presume, correct? Yeah. Because we're going to show this as we take the flight. Where are you located on the plane? You're the radio man. Where are you located?
Position, yeah, radio man position, yes.
Is that?
That's right behind the
bombardier. I know it is. So, first of all, how'd you become a radio man? I mean, was that something you chose, or something they told you you're going to be?
Actually, I was down in Denison, Texas, in the Air Force. I was a crewman, mechanic on the AT-6s down there. Then the bulletin came out that anybody want to be a radio man. I said, okay, I'll volunteer. So that's how I got into it.
And in those days, did you have to learn Morse code and all that kind of stuff
yes,
too?
Yes, all that Morse code stuff, yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
And it's all forgotten.
It's like my Spanish 101 is all forgotten.
Yeah.
You then in the European theater, where were you based in Europe? Where were you based out of?
In England. Shoveston, England.
And so bombing runs to where? On your bombing runs?
They were all over Germany, Norway, Holland, Belgium.
Now you were fortunate, you were not shot down.
No, but we were shot at quite a few times.
And when you're shot at, did you have any of the guys wounded?
Shrapnel, no, none.
Well, that is really amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
How many missions?
25.
Wow. Wait a minute, 25, that's over the amount of missions you're supposed to fly, isn't it?
They raised it to 35 after that. I lucked out.
Yeah, you lucked out at 25, right?
No, my last mission was March the 22nd over Berlin. That was the 25th mission.
What year was that?
44, March of 44. And when I went through Berlin, you might as well say they threw everything up there, believe me. Yeah. I didn't think I was going to get back. But
a lot of incoming flying over Berlin. Now, the reason that they sent you guys to Berlin, specifically Berlin, was there a specific strategy for bombing Berlin?
No, just straight to Berlin and bomb it. That's it.
And you're going from Berlin and then back to Great Britain, to England?
Yes. Back to England, yes.
And what squadron was this?
The 305th Bomb Group.
Okay. The
8th Air Force.
8th Air Force. Now, a couple of more pleasant memories, I would hope. Did you get a chance? Did you get an opportunity to do any R&R?
Yes, they after we flew about a couple of Berlin missions, the doctor on board, on the base, they says that's enough. Send you out to Scotland for R&R.
Did you play golf in Scotland?
No, I chased girls.
You're the first one to admit that. I asked, he'll remain nameless, but you know who it is. I asked him on R&R. He said he had R&R in Rome, and I said, well, what did you do in Rome? He said, I went to church. Well, I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did,
I'm
among
sure he
other
did,
things.
yeah.
The, the theater, I mean, it was rough going, no doubt. Relationships are built in the service. Is that your recollection of the friendships that you bonded with over those years and through the years?
Yes, yes. You have to. I mean, you have to get along with everybody. You got to socialize with everybody as much as you could. And in fact, I just lost my ball turret gunner from Peoria, Illinois, about a year ago. And we always communicated together and see one another. But that's about it. We usually bond. But most everybody that I know of, that my crew, they're mostly gone.
Yeah, they're gone. That's again the 305th Bomb Group, and I should have asked this when I asked you where the radio operator is. What kinds of things go on? What is a radio operator doing once you take off from England and you're heading toward Berlin? What is the your responsibility?
Not much while you're in flight, when you're over enemy territory. There's nothing you can do outside of listening and intercom with your pilot and all that, where your enemies are coming through or whatever. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. But you're also praying that nobody gets a direct hit on that bombardier area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're in World War II. Did you have? Did they call on you for Korea also?
No. No. I got out of service in '45.
Yeah. So what did you do after service?
Got married.
Is one of the girls he met in?
No, local girl. Married.
Tell me about your family.
I had 4 daughters, and I got one in oldest daughter, first daughter I would say, is in Oklahoma. Then I've got one in Manuka, my baby daughter. Then I've got one in Lockport. Then one passed away on me.
Yeah. And what was her name? What's her name? The one who passed away.
Donna.
Donna, and your wife?
She was 60 years old when
Oh, boy.
she passed away. My wife Esther, she passed away a year and a half ago.
Well, sorry for that. You were how old when you got into the service?
Old what?
How old were you when you got in the service?
When I got into it? I would say close to 25, 21 rather.
21.
Yeah.
So you were an
I got
old
out-
man.
Then I got out when 24.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
there was a bunch of 17,
They didn't
18.
call me, so I enlisted.
Were there any? You're a radio guy, and you're brought in. Did you do anything else on that plane? Because sometimes they made you do things that you
Well,
weren't necessarily trained for.
You're pretty much like a nursemaid on board. If somebody got a problem with oxygen, you go there and try to rectify whatever has to be done. Or his heated suit is not functioning properly, you check it out. And then when they drop your bombs, you got to open up your door and see if all the bombs are out. Yeah. If they're not out, you kick them out.
You kicked the bombs out. How young are you now? What's your last birthday?
93 in June.
Okay, coming up, 93 in June. Well, 21 to 93, lots of things, lots of life, and
A lot of things happen, yes.
yeah.
A lot of things happen.
Well-
I continue flying little airplanes and all that. Oh, yeah.
good.
Yeah.
You know, it's an amazing thing here as I'm talking to these guys, and what a privilege it is to talk with you. And thank you for your service. But I don't know, he just finished lunch here. We grabbed him out of the lunchroom. We're going to go back and have some more, but I don't know what they eat or what they drink or what kind of vitamins they have, but they all look like they're 60 years old and in great shape, and we thank you. Have a great flight, and enjoy talking with you.
Thank you.
Take care. That's Ted Michi.
pull over there and then I think them guys are gonna come out with an export light or something. Yeah. I'll go over there.
Detail, dead, hut! Prepare Are you okay? You guys sit down. Okay. Okay. It's okay. Sit down. I'll hold the chair. I know.
I gotta run there and get my phone real quick so I can turn it on.
Thank you so much. Timmy, he almost cried when he couldn't go on it. Timmy, did he make your entire day for coming? Wasn't that awesome? That was nice. It was very, very nice.
You made his
We really had a
lifetime.
great time.
When you get to meet